He is Dave McCann. My name is Jason Shepard, and we are so thrilled to have our next guest. He is a Super Bowl champion head coach. He is also a former BYU Cougar. It is great to have Brian Billick back on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline. Brian, thanks so much for taking a few minutes. How are you?
How you doing? No, I'm still a BYU Cougar. I'm not former. I know, people always introduce me as a former Super Bowl winning head coach, and I have to remind them, well, no, I'm still a Super Bowl winning. They don't take the trophy back after the year, and take mine away. I still get to keep it. So.
All right, now look, Super Bowl champion coach, NBA or NFL veteran coach and broadcaster, but tight end at BYU. Where does the tight end spot rank in your list of football credentials?
Well, there's something to be said to be in the first, I guess. I don't know that if you rank them, I'm probably at the bottom in terms of talent and my contribution, but was one of the first. We were just beginning to throw the ball at a time when you really didn't, go to tight end. So it was kind of fun to be a part of and watch how it's grown since then.
Well, and you've got the BYU gear on too, which we
right.
love to see. So it's always nice to see the Cougars repping the Cougar gear. And speaking of repping the Cougars, let's talk about Zach Wilson. Quite a 2020 season for the new quarterback of the New York Jets. Goes number 2 overall to New York. What was your reaction to the pick? And then what do you make of his fit with the Jets?
Well, that's really the important thing. I wrote a book called The Q Factor, which is, the league is notorious for screwing up first-round picks. Literally, it's a 50-50 crapshoot. I don't care who it is, what team. That's just what it is. And of the 5 guys that were drafted this year, there's no reason all of them shouldn't be top-flight pros. The fact of the matter is half of them are going to fail. And a big part of it has to be, where do they go? What's the fit? And that's the thing for Zach. It's Joe Douglas, who's the general manager, started with me in Baltimore. Is an outstanding general manager. Robert Saleh, the new head coach. I like the mix that they have with Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, that he's coming in with a new group that's getting started. And that's all positive. Now, the tough thing is he's doing it in New York, and that is a tough market. As tough as it is to get in the NFL, there's nothing like that New York market. So that's really the challenge. Can he come into that market with a team that has struggled, and they've got to continue to wrap things around him? That was part of the problem for Sam Darnold and why he failed. If they can do that, and I really think that Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas are the guys to do it, then he has every chance to succeed. But he's going to have to do it and keep an even keel in one of the toughest markets in the NFL.
Coach, I want to congratulate you joining Chad Lewis as the only authors who played tight end at BYU.
That's right.
Nice job.
That's right. Got to be multi-talented.
If Zach was your quarterback, would you bring in a veteran quarterback and have him play in front of him for a little bit, or would you just? I'm
a believer. You got to play him. Yeah, that's the only place you learn. And I get it. People say, well, you sit in and let them learn. The only thing you learn if you're not playing is where the stadium is and where to eat after the game. The good spots to go to. You got to play. And the most successful, and there's a lot of different ways to do it, but I think he has the ability. There's some ups and downs. I get that. But every snap that he takes in 2021 is going to make him and the New York Jets more successful in 2022. And that's really what needs to happen.
Coach, Zach has been compared to a lot of very high-profile quarterbacks. And comparisons are always very dangerous because it's probably not fair to either. But he's been compared, his style of play, to Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. I've had enough people that have not shied away from that I'm just wondering, what do you make of those comparisons, and is that fair to put that on a rookie quarterback?
No, it's not, because the comparison, and we're always, when I do my work for the NFL Network, they're always pushing us to give us a comp, give us a comparison. And it's hard because you're either going to kill the guy with the comparison or you're slam dunking him into the Hall of Fame. And you got to, slow your roll with that. It's not, that's not fair to lay a Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers label over Zach Wilson right from the get-go with those expectations. There's going to be high expectations. The fact of the matter is, we already talked about the failure rate of first-round quarterbacks in the NFL. Physically, there's no reason Zach Wilson shouldn't be all the things we're talking about. There's no reason all of the quarterbacks that were taken shouldn't have been, Jamarcus Russell, Vince Young, Joey Harrington, Ryan Leaf. The list goes on and on. They all had the physical tools to perform in the National Football League, but yet half of them, via the list I just mentioned, fail because it also has to do with the mental and emotional makeup. Can he transition into the big leagues and handle that pressure? And then, like we talked about, the marriage with the team. So that's going to be vitally important for Zach to not kind of put that pressure on yourself early. You're a competitor. You want to do well. But I don't know that I'd jump right into I'm going to do what Patrick Mahomes did. And there's a guy that sat, for those that say, well, look, he sat in behind Alex Smith for a year, and maybe that's the way to go. We don't know that Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have been as good or matured even quicker had he not started from the get-go. Plus, they were a good team. The New York Jets are not. So, if you're going to start it, put them in together, let them grow together, wrap the right people around them, and let that growth come.
Coach, I've been to one real NFL football game. It was the Super Bowl with the Patriots and the Eagles. And I watched the Patriots come out. I was on a work assignment for my station here in Utah. And I watched the Patriots come out, and 53 guys came out. And then I waited for the rest of the team. And I realized, no, this is the team. Whereas BYU will roll out 100 guys in uniform when we play Arizona in September. So my question is, we got a dozen BYU guys trying to make an NFL roster. And there's just so few spots. You tried to do that as a player before you went into coaching. How hard is it to get a job in the NFL for these guys?
It's very hard because it's a very limited field. And the thing that I always used to counsel my rookies was, one, you just do your best. When it comes time to cut you, I'll do that. Okay, don't cut yourself. Don't look at the roster and say, well, this is that. You just play hard. Believe me, if it comes time and you got to go, I'll do that. All right. Secondly, there's a role for everybody. When you look at the back end of the roster, I usually would go into the year, into the season and training camp, and Ozzie Newsome and I probably could have told you 48, 49 of the 53 final man roster going in, knowing who was going to be on the team. But it was that 50th, 51st, 2nd, 3rd, and 53rd player, those role players, those guys that maybe they're not the top draft choices. Maybe they're never going to be a starter for you in the traditional sense, but they're going to have a role for you during the course of the season. Maybe it's 15, 20 snaps of special teams, whatever it may be. It's those role players. And that's where, the back end of a draft, you're talking about Christensen in Carolina and Tonga and with the Bears. And I think it was Chris Wilcox went to Tampa Bay. Dax Millen, if I'm saying that properly, went to Washington football team. They all have an opportunity to create that role. Plus, they have the expanded developmental squad rosters, which is a good thing, particularly now that we've added the extra game. So they're really, there are close to 65 spots or better that you can make this team. And so don't pigeonhole yourself into thinking it's this or that. Just go out and play hard. Find that role for yourself. Throw yourself into whatever role is there for you, and you're going to have a chance.
Coach, we've had you on this show quite a few times, and I know that we've talked a lot about Taysom Hill with you, and it was never going to be easy to replace a guy like Drew Brees whenever the day came that he retired. Well, that day has come. From what you've seen from Taysom Hill, and right now he's vying for the starting job, as is Jameis Winston. From what you've seen out of Taysom Hill, do you believe he has shown you enough that he deserves to be a starting quarterback in the National Football League?
Absolutely, no question. And he adds that dynamic of athleticism that's so important. He's going to have to tailor his game a little bit because the things and the physicality and the things he likes to do in his previous role, that was fine. But as the starting quarterback, you've got to be a little more prudent than that. He's a very physical player, but to take those reps constantly, to take that abuse constantly, he's got to get out of bounds a little more readily. He's got to slide a little bit. But from what I saw, I'm excited about his potential because ultimately, even with that athleticism, even the Patrick Mahomes or the Russell Wilsons and the like, you've got to be able to win from the pocket. The other things are nice, and it's a nice adjunct that can add to it. But you've got to be able to compete and win from the pocket. I think we saw that capability from him, and I'm excited to see how he's going to continue to develop under Sean Payton.
Do you think Sean Payton, when he looks at his roster and his scheme, Are the Saints a better football team if they have an adequate quarterback and Taysom's in there and he can do all of his things, as opposed to eliminating a guy who can do all those things and putting Taysom at quarterback?
That's a good question. It depends who the other guy is and how good they are. If it's Drew Brees, you're dang right. Oh yeah, that works.
If it's Winston,
Jameis Winston, I still have questions about Jameis Winston. Bill Walsh was a firm believer that you knew by the 25th or 26th start whether a quarterback could be a guy or not. You might find out earlier, but if it's not there by that 25th or 26th game, it's probably not there. Now, there's exceptions to the rule. Ryan Tannehill's a perfect example of someone who was a first-round bust, as I alluded to earlier, that found a different place. They wrapped the right process around him and was very successful. Maybe Jameis Winston can be that guy. I'm not sure, but that's an interesting question. That again, does Taysom Hill present with the right quarterback that extra element that makes the offense just that much better versus what you lose? What I'm advocating, because clearly you can't ask Taysom Hill to do the things. I'd really advocate that if he's a starting quarterback, he doesn't cover kickoffs. That would probably be the first thing I would do.
That's why you're a Super Bowl winning coach.
Yeah. So you are taking whatever those snaps that he performed at, you need to replace those with someone else. So that's a very legitimate question. But I would take that chance because I really think he has the potential to be a really top-flight NFL quarterback.
Coach, last thing before we let you go, and we do appreciate your time. Last week we had a conversation talking about the most prominent former Cougar in the National Football League right now, and consensus was it was Fred Warner, widely looked at as the best linebacker in the NFL. Yeah. Where do you fall on that? Would you agree it's Fred, or do you think it's somebody else?
No, I think that's a good call. And there again, there's an example. This was a third-round choice, okay, that found a spot. Although, if you're drafted in the first 3 rounds, you're going to make the team. But that doesn't mean you haven't, created a spot for yourself to build up on that. Dennis Pitta, I think would probably, although he's not current, is probably one that also I think Kyle Van Noy is one, although he's having to find a different role for himself now. So I think those would be worthy, in the conversation. Jamal Williams is finding a little bit of success. But, if you had to rank them right now, probably Fred Warner would be on the top.
Coach, we appreciate you taking a few minutes. It's always great to talk with you. Best of luck throughout the rest of the offseason, and I'm sure, just like we are, you can't wait for the NFL year to get here.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. That's Brian Billick on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. Deseret First, you know why. We show how.